Hey everybody, welcome back to the to the Hangover. I kind of stumbled there. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon White. Shannon, how you doing, my man?
Well, I tell you, we've had some family health issues the last few days, and a lot of time at the hospital. But the Lord's blessed us, and we've come out the other side, and we're all home and healthy and happy right now. And I'm very thankful. But I'm anxious to talk some Steeler football, and I haven't got to watch anything, any podcast. I haven't seen any notes. The only thing I seen when we got home today was that the Steelers went to Kennywood.
Yeah, that's true. They ended up going out to Kennywood for their team building day of OTAs. They've done something like this every single year, whether
Every
it
year,
was
yeah.
Dave and Buster's or something. And this year it was Kennywood. Yeah, it looked like some people were posting some things on social media. It looked like they were having a good time out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure they were getting to know each other fairly well. But while that was going on, there was some other news that wasn't Steeler related, but could be impactful on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was Justin Jefferson signed a 4-year, $140 million contract extension. He just set the market there. Now, Steelers are interested and have been supposedly interested in some receivers here and there. Uh, do you think that has some sort of effect on the Pittsburgh Steelers acquiring one of these guys? I know June 1st, none come and gone. There's no DK Metcalf here. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know that the Vikings they're kind of notorious for setting the market. A while back, they signed Kirk Cousins to a guy who's never won anything in the postseason and had a reputation of failing in the big moments in the big games. If they signed him to a massive contract, and that kind of set the whole quarterback carousel in motion. And now there's a lot of receivers right now that are waiting to see what Justin Jefferson got. And now they've set the market again. I think it's a record. Was it
Mm-hmm.
like 35 million a season and all this guaranteed money? So you got guys like CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Hook and all these guys are licking their chops now.
Yeah.
They've got something to shoot for. Um, I'm not comparing it and saying they're as good as Jefferson, but still that kind of sets the top end of the market. So I'm sure some of the GMs around the league are not too happy.
I'm sure they're not. But, the Minnesota Vikings can do this because they don't have a quarterback that they're
Yes,
paying.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? They just got a quarterback in the draft, so they're not going to have to be paying that high price tag for a while. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't paying much for a quarterback either. And that's been some of the speculation leading into the Steelers going out there and acquiring some of these bigger names like the Brandon Ayuk of the
Mm-hmm.
world. But I mean, I don't know. I don't see the Steelers trading big and then also having to pay big. With Justin Jefferson doing this, one, I don't think the 49ers can afford to keep Brandon Ayuk if, he's going to be acquiring something like this. So that kind of puts the Steelers back into play for a trade. But, they're going to have to make some big payment there. Do you think it's worth it on a receiver where, it's every year there's some receivers that come out in the draft?
Oh yeah, and if they're paying, they got to pay a Cam Heyward,
Mm-hmm.
and regardless, because they're saying they're not going to try to, they're going to pay him what he's due this year,
Mm-hmm.
and they would rather do that than do an extension. Um, as you say, there's always good receivers coming out. Look at this season. There's probably 8 guys that has potential wide receiver one capabilities in this past draft, and the Steelers already have Pickens, and the wide receiver two doesn't get massive amounts of targets. So if you're paying big bucks, you're actually obviously paying for a wide receiver one. So what do you do with George Pickens? You
Yeah.
don't want to trade him because then you're back to having one top receiver again. So I don't think they'll look for any of them high price guys, top end guys. They might try to bring in somebody that becomes available, or even make a trade for somebody who maybe is not fully established. But I don't think that they're going to go after one of these high price guys.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I could be we could be wrong. They've been trying to do some sort of trade, but I think that once you factor this in, and then you're right. George Pickens is going to be a guy that might be up there when it comes to contracts. What kind of year does George Pickens need to have some sort of, to price himself almost out of the Steelers' range here to be, somewhat close to what Justin Jefferson is doing or making?
Well, I think that's Pickens' plan all along.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's worked really hard this offseason. He wants to prove he's wide receiver one material in this offense. And considering how many targets the number one receiver gets for Arthur Smith, when you look back at A.J. Brown and some other guys, I could easily see 80, 90 receptions, maybe 1,400 yards, let's say, and 8 to 10 touchdowns. If Pickens can put up them numbers, considering he has Wilson and Fields or a combination, I think that he can do that as the number one in this offense. If he does that, he will put himself up in at least the high 20s a season, and he'll get paid. And it wouldn't shock me if the Steelers don't pay him.
Yeah.
They like to keep their own,
Yeah, that's true. And if you can produce and you can put it on the field, they'll keep you.
Yeah.
And he's definitely one that has shown flashes of that. I think he does need to put it together for a full season.
Yes.
None of the tantrums, none of the don't want to block for anybody type of situations. If those things can be limited to none, then I'm sure that'll also increase his value. Nobody wants that. That's a part of the process, right? When somebody's looking at a player, that's why certain players fall in the draft. It's because they may have some, on or off issue on the field issues, which is one of the reasons why George Pickens is speculated to have fallen, another being the ACL injury the year before. But that's something that has to be factored in. If you're having those type of issues and you're having, players and coaches having to get involved with this guy on the sideline, I think that does impact his value. And so he's going to have a clean year. If he can do something like that, if he puts up those yards that you just mentioned, about 1,400, I think he's probably easy around 25, 24 million a year.
If we think back, AB was completely happy and content with being in the Steelers when he was having them record-breaking years.
Mm-hmm.
Guys who are producing usually are pretty happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're not producing and you're not getting the quarterback play, which he hasn't got in his career. Pickens has not had adequate quarterback play during his NFL career thus far. If he gets that this year, now he did at the end of last year with Mason Rudolph. That was a good combination. Rudolph's talents fit Pickens' skill set. But I think Russell Wilson his talents can fit Pickens' skill set as well, because Wilson throws a good deep ball. And Wilson and Fields is more mobile and can extend the play, which makes a guy like Pickens way more dangerous. How many times did AB have a big play? Because Ben kept the play alive, and AB kept, in motion, and it worked open, and then they hit a big play. I mean, there's too many times for us to count. So Pickens is a beast of a receiver. And like the old commercial, feed the beast. If they feed Pickens, I don't think he'll be a problem. Because if he's producing, I don't think he'll be a drama or an issue, tantrums and some other things that we've seen. I just think that he's younger, he's immature, and when you have the quarterback play that he had received for the majority of his career, it was very, very frustrating for him and everybody else. He just didn't hide it very well.
Yeah, no, he definitely didn't. But you're right. When he wasn't being implemented into the game, I think there was a game down the late in the season there with Mason Rudolph. Yeah, he didn't get very many targets, and yet he was still good. He was okay. Yet the offense was fluid in that game. They were moving the ball down the field.
He got no targets, if I remember right.
That's correct. He didn't get a target in that game. It wasn't Seattle, because in Seattle he caught that one ball. It had to have been Baltimore. It must have been Baltimore. It was
because Deontay Johnson caught that long slant for a touchdown.
Yeah,
and the weather was awful. I think it was Baltimore.
Yeah, it was Baltimore where he didn't make a catch, but he was he was out there celebrating even when other players were scoring, and he was out there blocking, and that was a huge criticism of his,
Yep.
going, into the later part of the season. And so, I think he expects to, the team to be at a certain level. I mean, he went to Georgia, and he talked about why he chose Georgia. He wanted to be on a team that was going to win. He wants to be in with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he wants to be on a team that's going to win. And I think that if, everybody's doing well and as well as we expect them to do, I don't think he's going to be an issue either. And so,
Well, it's, the talk about his blocking, and it is true. Sometimes he didn't give the effort. I seen routes where he stopped.
mhm.
But again, I don't think Canada really told him this is what you do. You keep, work your way back to the quarterback, whatever, because he wasn't the only one. A lot of receivers would run their original route, and they just stop and leave the quarterback back and running around. And I was like, that's not whoever the wide receiver coach. That's not how it's done. But now they got Azzini now, and as the wide receiver coach, and they say he's very thorough, he's very demanding, and I think that's going to make a big difference in a competent offense as well. So, but I was going to say, Pickens is a great blocker when he's engaged and he's enthusiastic about blocking. He flattens guys.
Mm-hmm.
He really does. We've seen him throw some great blocks, but sometimes he don't give that consistent effort.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on those things. Because he is very physical, and that was one of the things that people were saying about him, that way maybe he's a little bit too physical, which also caused some personal foul things. But overall, I think he's gonna end up doing well. He's gonna end up getting a bag next year, and the Steelers aren't afraid to pay multiple players and multiple players in the same position. I mean, they're paying 2 outside linebackers, top money in the league. So I wouldn't, even if they were to give George Pickens a bag, I don't think that necessarily doesn't take them out of contention of getting somebody else, that's a little bit more on the higher end when it comes to cost and another wide receiver, if the right situation comes along. And
they definitely have went cheap at running back.
They definitely have, and they've already made their decision on Najee Harris, at least for the 5th-year option, as far as whether or not they're going to make that investment into him. And we'll see how that ends up going. You had brought up Justin Fields a little bit earlier. Did you happen to see the comments by Chad Johnson towards Justin Fields?
No, I did not.
Okay, so he was commenting on the thought of him being a gimmick quarterback. He was, I guess the conversation was whether or not the Steelers should use Justin Fields in a similar slash role, Taysom Hill type role. And, Chad Johnson was just saying, you don't want to be a gimmick quarterback. You don't want to get yourself in that position. You want to be a QB. What do you think about that? Justin Fields is a guy that wants to be on the field. That might be the role to get on the field. Do you think that would hurt his stock or help his stock? Where do you fall on that?
I mean, I know Chad Johnson's a former player, but just because he's a former player doesn't mean he gives good advice. and what I mean by that is Taysom Hill he has excellent value for the Saints because he's such a versatile guy. He can do so many things, and he's a weapon due to his athleticism being used out of that position. Now, a while back when Drew Brees retired, they acted like maybe Hill could be the starter. We all know Hill's not a starting quarterback. Hill is a guy who's a very good athlete and offers a lot of versatility, but he's not a starter. Now, Justin Fields, we don't know that yet. He is a great athlete, but if he can develop his progressions and his reads and slow the game down, it takes a while for the game to slow down for some players. If it does, he could have starting potential, even franchise quarterback potential. So I understand what Chad Johnson's saying, but they're not really talking about that I've heard making him slash 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about using him in certain packages to take advantage of his athleticism with different formations, the Death Star, the inverted wishbone, whatever. but it would throw a different wrinkle out there, and it would allow him to show what he could do in a not necessarily a pressure situation. He's no longer going to be asked to be the man to save a franchise. He's going to be asked to be a versatile weapon from the quarterback position. I don't expect to see him running routes as a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
If they asked him to do something like that, I could see Chad Johnson saying, "Hey, you're really talented as a quarterback. Don't let him try to turn you into something else."
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the plan. To me, it sounds like they're going to do some red zone packages. They're going to do some stuff that they can try to create strong mismatches and influence the defense at certain points of the game. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with it either. And you brought up the perfect point there that it's going to be certain packages. And, there's been no talk outside of him potentially returning some kickoffs. Outside of that,
that was crazy. That was crazy.
Outside of that rumor, there's been no talk of him playing in the tight end position, running back position, or anything like that. Now, I do think he's going to have some options with the ball in his hands to run the ball. Maybe
yes.
I think that's going to be a high possibility for him. But when do you think the Steelers should implement that type of package? If they're down in the red zone, you would think that they've got some momentum going. They're moving the ball. They're getting there. Do you really want to pull the starting quarterback at that point and bring in, Justin Fields? Or do you want to continue with the momentum going into the end zone?
It depends if it works.
Okay.
Hey, it's the right call every time it works.
That's true.
And when it doesn't work, it's always second guess and it's the wrong call. Yeah. That's tough. I mean, it can really impact the momentum of a game when you try to do stuff like this. Now, we've seen teams implement it and it worked great. And every time it doesn't work great, the coach is second guessed or the offensive coordinator. But when you look at the possibilities, we talked maybe even last week or the week before, the Steelers at one point did not have weapons on offense. They have weapons, a lot of weapons now. Mm-hmm. If you have Fields taking that shotgun snap with Warren on one side, Harris on the other side, you got Patterson, or you could use Wilson in the backfield behind him. You could use Scotty Miller. They say Calvin Austin III is looking really strong at OTAs, and he's going to be a big part of the package. Look at the speed options they got right there. Then you have Darnell Washington in there blocking, who's like an extra offensive lineman. You snap the ball to Fields. We know that Harris and especially Warren are great blockers. Get these guys out in front of him, and that is going to be tough for any defense to handle. Mm-hmm. So, I think the risk versus the reward, if they can implement that package and it be successful, a majority of the time. And here's something I said the other day. Russell Wilson is not a statue. Mm-hmm. You can run some of them formations with Russell Wilson because he can move and he can run. And you can also throw out of that package, as we know. So
that's true.
It's, anytime you have that many options and weapons, it offers great creativity. And I think Arthur Smith's got the creative mind to utilize it, but he will definitely be second guessed every time it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. I think you got to pull it at the right time and the right place.
Yep.
I don't know. I think if it works quite a bit, it might be a change of the guard. I mean, how many times? Let's just say it does work as planned. How many times is Mike Tomlin going to see Justin Fields out there in a formation that works before he decides just to leave him out there as the guy? Because.
But what if both guys are playing good?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That's a good problem to have.
That would be a good problem.
It really is. Yeah. Because the injury can happen at any time.
That's true. There could be an injury. When it comes to Russell, though, I mean, that's one of the aspects of his game as well was speed. I think he said that he hit 21 miles an hour on the GPS. That's about the same thing that Justin Fields has hit. So speed isn't.
He did that recently?
He said he did that last year.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he still had that much speed.
Yeah, this offseason. He said he's been.
I knew he could move, like I said, but
Yeah.
that's moving.
Yeah, no, that's going. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty quick. And I mean, that's breaking the speed limit in some school zones. And so
Oh yeah, you'll get pulled over.
I don't know. I mean, that's what he said in one of these interviews. So I'd want to see it. I want to see it happen. I'd like to see that happen on the field. But mobility has also been a factor in his game as well. So I do think that they're going to have to, pick and choose when they're going to be using these formations and options. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It definitely will be. But we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about the other side of the field. Don't go anywhere on YouTube. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody, to The Hangover. I'm Daniel. Along with me is Shannon. Thanks for sticking with us. Today, we're talking about necessity is the mother of invention. That is the title of the show. And before we get back into it, I want to remind you guys about our website, stillcurrentnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Make sure after the show, you go check that place out. You can get up-to-date information, breaking news, the whole 9 yards. And while you're there, you can check out our audio-only podcast, including mine that just aired Friday. Don't want to miss it. Go check it out. If you're on Apple or whatever the case may be, please give us a 5 stars and, the whole 9 yards. So we came up with this title a little while ago. Necessity is the mother of invention. What you came up with it, Shannon? What did you mean by necessity is the mother of invention? I think I have an idea, but I want to hear it from you.
Yep, me and you and some of our other podcast members and still Kurt Network contributors, we've talked for a while is what are they going to do at this position? Whether it's the slot or what are we going to do at wide receiver 2 or at slot corner. And sometimes if you step back and you watch how the Steelers are building this roster, Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, I think they're adding a lot of guys with a lot of versatility that can be used, that you don't have you don't have just that full-time true wide receiver 2, but you have a lot of guys that you can run out of that who can also, you can move them around, move them in the slot. As we said, move them in the backfield. Mm-hmm. Roman Wilson can play in the backfield, the slot. He can play outside. They're putting a team together that is going to be unpredictable. And sometimes because you don't have that for sure starting corner, slot corner, or slot receiver or wide receiver 2, you can actually be more a little harder to plan for a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, because they could run a variety of players from those positions and create mismatches or depending on certain matchups. So I think that, a lot of times we want to panic because it's not familiar or it's not, well, we want an established guy at every position. That's hard to do in free agency and when you're, finishing up a rebuild, which I think the Steelers are closer to the end of the rebuild than they are the beginning, especially if Russell Wilson or Justin Fields turns out to be an answer at quarterback. Then the Steelers I see as a real contender. But the quarterback position is going to decide that. The offensive line, they've got guys for this year, and they've got guys in case they lose some guys after the season that should be ready to step in. So they are planning ahead, but you can only do that in so many positions. So I think that some of these decisions they've made this offseason has been out of necessity, and it's caused Khan and Waddle to be very creative and in the way they're thinking. And it might pan out and work out just beautifully. When you get a guy like a Peyton Wilson late in the 3rd round, who could easily have been a first-round player talent-wise, that's how you have a few of them in a couple of drafts back-to-back, you become a contender very fast.
Yeah, no, I agree. When it comes to this year, I think that this team is, there may be just a couple players, but in reality, I think they're almost a quarter to the point where they're a quarterback away. Now, you're right. Yeah. That answer could be on this team already. There's a couple of question marks, unsureness with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But when you look at what they've done defensively and they spent the money there, and it's panned out. I mean, to be honest with you, I think if we had, if the Steelers had a competent offense over the last couple of years, that defense wouldn't have been on the field as much, and probably less injuries, and probably, obviously have gone a lot further than he did. And so I think that, they've lost some pieces, and there's some question marks at the cornerback position, but the acquisition of Deshaun Elliott, I think that's probably one of the most underrated moves of the offseason. He's going to be a guy that's going to be assisting with Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think got a little bit disrespected. He was left out on a little bit of a list. I don't know if you heard this, but he was not even listed on the top 11 safeties, and I can't remember the guy's name. What is his name? Farah something. Well, anyways, I think he's going to be able to bring some of that splash back, and I don't know. I'm really excited about this team. What do you think about Deshaun Elliott? I think it's the most underrated signing of the offseason. Where do you stand on it?
If he's not, he's right at the top. Mm-hmm. Because last year, when they signed Keanu Neal, I was like, bad move. This is. They said, he's Terrell Edmonds. He could mimic Terrell Edmonds. No, Edmonds was much, much faster, and Edmonds was a mistake eraser. Mm-hmm. He run guys down a lot of times, and he made that last tackle to save a long run or a big play. He shut down a lot of tight ends. He was the best they had at tight end coverage. But Deshaun Elliott is a huge upgrade over Keanu Neal. And Elliott can play the slot. He can work in the slot depending on the matchup. He's done that in the past. He's a big hitter. He can't cover. He's an upgrade. And if it lets Minkah Fitzpatrick, the reason Minkah Fitzpatrick was disrespected is he had no splash plays. Now you think about that, Daniel. Mm-hmm. Who I think the best ball hawking safety in football, they turned him into a hybrid box safety / linebacker, and they misused him. It'd be like taking a Lamborghini mud bogging. I mean, they misused Fitzpatrick so bad last year. I feel sorry for the guy. And let me tell you something. Most guys would have been complaining. They'd have been like, I haven't got a splash play all year, not one interception, because you're using me like a daggone linebacker. Because they was dropping him down like they used to do Edmonds. Did he complain? No. He just did. He did whatever they asked him to do. I have the utmost respect for that guy. But he sacrificed his Pro Bowl opportunity, his All-Pro. Hey, that's how they get paid. Mm-hmm. They go into negotiations. They're like, hey, I'm a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, first team. He sacrificed last year, got trashed by a lot of fans on the hit on Nick Chubb, and it was not a dirty hit at all. How else is he supposed to tackle Nick Chubb's? He went low because within the rules, that's why the only way he could tackle him. And he did. He had an excellent season effort-wise, and it beat him up. As you said, the offense left him hanging out there the whole time.
Yeah,
and they got beat down. He's playing like a linebacker. He's a ball hawking safety, but he gave everything he had, went through the injuries, and never complained. I think we're going to see a huge season out of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think that Elliott and some of these other options they got now, they can even bring back a guy like Gary Crow to replace some of that strong safety and let him be the ball hawking, roaming safety he is. And I think Fitzpatrick's going to have a huge year, especially with all the additional talent at linebacker they've brought in.
Yeah. The linebacker, their development's going to be huge because there's new players, obviously. There might be a little bit of some growing pains there, in the inside linebacker position.
Yep.
But I think once you probably get past week 2, 3, and these guys start to gel together, I also think that a healthy Cam Heyward and a Keanu Benton in the middle is going to do it's going to be night and day difference than what we got last season. Last season with Cam Heyward, with the injuries, he was never anywhere near 100%, even when he came back. And as we said it before, he turned into just a guy that was going to be able to stop the run, put a plug in the middle, because that was a hole there that teams were just running through. And so, him healthy, him coming back, Keanu Benton another year, Larry Ogunjobi can stay healthy the year. I mean,
Hey, did
that's
you
a
see?
successful thing.
Did you see Keanu Benton? I think it was last week. It might
Mhm.
have been early this week, but I haven't got to see anything this week. Keanu Benton going through uh, some of the drills,
Yeah,
and he didn't have pads on, but they was just going through the drills. They just said, like I said, if you didn't know he was a defensive lineman, he moves. He can be a fullback. He can
yeah,
be a tight end. He is so athletic, and so he just looks like he's going to be a star.
yeah. You know, you know who else looked really, really good doing that? And maybe he'll have a breakout year this year. Who knows? Loudermilk. I saw him hitting some bags and running through them, and he looked fast.
Oh, and he's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's huge.
Big dude. Did you see the hair coming out of
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Boom. And I was like, man, this guy's looking fast. I mean, these are bags, obviously, and
yeah.
not players. But I was like, man, this guy's running through it pretty quickly. And maybe he's gonna need a big year, because if he doesn't have a good training camp, he's one guy that's possible not to be on the team,
Oh,
maybe a
definitely.
practice squad kind of guy. Him and DeMarvin Leal. I think those two guys are probably dudes that need to have a really good camp and preseason this year if they want to continue to stay with the team.
Do you agree with this? In my opinion, Loudermilk, if he can find the intensity,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody thought he could be another poor man's Cam Heyward. He is a 3-4 defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Leal to me is a 4-3 defensive lineman, and he's playing out of position and on the wrong scheme. To me, Leal is in more danger than Loudermilk because Leal still looks like he's about 300. And I just don't think at 300 he has the power to play the defensive line like the Steelers asked their guys to do. Because I talked recently in a podcast that I think the Steelers are going to get back to a little bit of the Blitzburg because of all this athleticism and talent that they have at linebacker now. And the defensive line isn't necessarily explosive other than Benton. So I think you're going to see Ogunjobi and Heyward be asked to play a little bit like Aaron Smith and Brett Kiesel. Tie up blockers, fill running lanes, collapse the pocket, but let these athletic linebackers, inside and outside linebackers, get to the quarterback and make all the big splash plays.
Yeah, you're right. And what I saw something here say, did I hear Loudermilk and breakout year in the same sentence? I said maybe. I said maybe.
We can hope. We can hope.
I said he's going to need a big training camp in preseason if he wants to make the team.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, if he can, step it up and be a part of the rotation and keep the other guys fresh, I think that could be a good spot for him. I mean, he's also very big and large, and I think that they utilize him in special teams and field goal blocking and things like that. So we'll see how it ends up working out. And I found out who the perpetrator was on the leaving Minka out of the top 11. It was Doug Farrar, or Farrar. I can't pronounce that. I apologize if I ripped that to pieces, but I believe he's on USA Today. He did his touchdown wire release on top 11 safeties and completely left Minka out of it. I thought that was completely disrespectful. I think he had Minka as number one going into 2023, so I think he's a little bit upset because of the lack of performance or splash that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think it's not fair to. I understand because he had no splash plays, dropping him down, but it's also not fair when they ask the guy to do that, and he does it to the best of his ability, and does a good job. But that took away his splash play ability altogether, and so I think I can see both sides, but I think it was a little harsh.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's pretty harsh, and there was other things that were going on. I mean, he played a game or two with a broken hand and a cast on his hand. Like it was more than just that one injury, and
he had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, it just was what it was. Oh man, so the Steelers end up signing a receiver today. I'm not sure if you heard about this. Former LSU wide receiver, Jeray Jenkins. I think he was receiver number 3 for Jacksonville last year. Probably just a depth piece. I don't think this guy moves the needle one way or the other. What do you think?
In all honesty, I have no idea who that is.
Well, they released cornerback Luke Barco to acquire him, so it wasn't anybody I think that was too bad in losing or acquiring. But yeah, man,
I think a lot of people were pretty high on Barku. Had some hope there and all. But I know he played in other leagues, other professional leagues, maybe the USFL or whatever. But I never seen enough of him to. I know he fit the taller, lanky corner that they were trying to get now, but I didn't see enough of him in the preseason that, I'm upset about it one way or the other.
Yeah, me either. Mandatory minicamp is next week.
Yes.
You think Cam Heyward's going to show?
He's never even missed OTAs till this year. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the contract situation and coming off that injury, it didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Steelers don't like hold-ins or holdouts. We've had some of both in recent years. I think it would be good if he at least shows up. Maybe declines to do certain things, but it would as a leader, and he's really the unquestioned leader of the defense, the senior member of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good for all these young guys that have been added for the last few years to see the guy they respect and who's viewed as the leader of the defense to at least show up and be there in a mentor sort of way.
Right. Yeah, I think we might see him. I was watching this program that was on the Steelers YouTube channel, the Pittsburgh Steelers YouTube channel. They were kind of going over the offseason and OTAs up to this point. And they were doing a little bit of a reminder, and they went back and showed that when Troy Fatuanu, the Steelers' first-round draft pick, when he arrived in Pittsburgh at the airport, he was greeted by Cam. Cam was there. He was the one that brought him in, showed him the city. So he's still well involved. He's just obviously business is what business is, and there's that side of the football. And he wasn't there for the voluntary portion. Now, even if he was there, I don't think he's going to be doing much working out or any of those type of things.
No, but at least be present.
Right, exactly. And I think that would him being a leader, him being a captain, the Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner, I think that would just kind of look great, and it'd be a huge thing for the other players that are on the field that are young and looking up to him as well. I think
that is key. You said earlier him greeting players that were drafted and because he's that, Ben's not around anymore. These guys who were the face of the franchise, now Cam is TJ. Those are the face of the Steelers franchise. And these young guys, when they talk about him, if you hear in the interviews, they're awestruck. I mean, they grew up watching him and what a player and what a person he is off the field. It's a great example of the Steelers way, which, they want to pass that culture on to the younger generation. It would set a great example if he could at least be present, even if he's not participating in a lot of the work.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you on that one. What do you call it? But yeah, man. So there's not much other news that's going on right now in Steeler Nation. Things are a little bit quiet. As we mentioned before, the Steelers went to Kennywood today. So there's not much even to talk about as far as OTAs because today was their bonding day. In the next couple of days, is there anything out of OTAs that you're looking forward to maybe seeing? Maybe perhaps some of these rookies take more snaps with the first team, or do you expect there to be hardly any news going into minicamp?
I had talked recently that right now Nate Herbig is still getting starting or first team reps at center, which I do not understand that saying that Frazier's got to earn the position. He was drafted to be the next legacy center.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Oh, we don't need to draft a center. We got some options on the team." Well, if it was Nate Herbig, somebody should lose their job, because last year Mason Cole got such a case of the yips he couldn't even snap the ball. We had quarterbacks trying to look like shortstops, trying to field these snaps and then get their eyes downfield and try to make a play. And they were struggling to make a play when the snap was good. So, and the fact that they never used Nate Herbig at all last year, and now they're expecting me to believe that he's the best option to send a message to your rookie center that you drafted because he's a plug and play guy. I just think that's kind of stupid. I understand that they have a culture that you got to earn the position, but you've got one of the hardest working guys in the draft. Everybody knows that about Frazier. And he needs, if he's going to be a starter, he needs all the work and the reps with these first team guys. And even if it's still Nate Herbig the rest of this week, when mandatory starts leading into training camp at the end of July, I want to see Frazier in there. Give the kid a chance during training camp, during preseason, to get reps when the pressure is not immense like it will be week one against the Falcons.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that chemistry is a huge component to the offensive line. And I think that's why in the last couple of years, the Pittsburgh Steelers have gotten better as the year went on. Towards the latter end of both seasons, the running game really picked up in the last couple of years. And, it was a huge component as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers had a late rush. And I think that the reason why we saw it more towards the latter part of the season versus more consistently in the beginning part is because there was a lot of new pieces and a lot of new places. And, I just think that it'd probably be in the best interest if he start working on that now. And that way, Isaac Seumalo and James Daniels are comfortable and they know and they understand who's going to be playing next to him.
Exactly.
I'm sure, some of the calls, some of the things, some of the teaching moments that are going to be missed out. I mean, let's just say you're there, you're lined up, and Isaac sees something that Frazier doesn't. He can point it out to him in that setting and at that moment. He's not going to be able to do that if Frazier's on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you learn as a young rookie. When you've got established veterans on both sides of you, that's immense. That is an immense advantage. But as you say, if you're over here with the second team scrubs, again, do you want to see Dan Moore starting again this year? People keep talking about this, and I'm like, I thought that was the whole point of drafting Fionnu. I thought that was the whole point.
Yeah,
because we realized you need another tackle. But again, they're trotting Dan Moore out there. And I know it's OTAs and all, but it's smoke screens, baby. That's all it is. We know what should be, and more than likely what will be. Let's just bite the bullet and get it done, and let these guys learn, because the offensive line, it takes time to develop familiarity and chemistry.
Yeah, I agree. And, if you want this offensive line to be where you want it to be and you want it to be there faster, it's probably best interest to start getting accustomed to each other and getting used to each other. But we'll see what happens. We have one more week of OTAs, and then we have another week of minicamp before there's a long break before training camp. And at that point, I think that's when we're going to really start to see some movement. Once the pads come on, there's always been players that have shined in this segment of off-season training and OTAs that maybe necessarily don't show up when the pads are on. So that's when it counts. That's when we're going to get a real idea of who's going to be on the team, who's going to be making a difference, and who might be playing somewhere else. Shannon, do you have any final words before we let everybody go?
I haven't been able to follow a lot for the last few days, but I did read and watched it on another little clip that they're saying that the Steelers, these are certain players, are saying that Calvin Austin III is going to get a lot of usage in this offense. I think they're really going to try to use his speed off of these heavy packages
Mm-hmm.
and should be able to create favorable matchups against some slower defenders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're trying to use him far more often this year and more creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's kind of predicted, all of his teammates are predicting him to have a big year. So I think we should definitely be keeping a close eye on him. That this might be his breakout year. He missed his whole rookie year, and last year he had an offensive coordinator and had no clue how to use him. So I think this year might be when we actually see what he's capable of.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we're also going to see a quarterback that can get him the ball as well, especially out there.
Oh,
You know,
definitely, yeah.
I think he has the opportunity this year to really prove it. I mean, if he doesn't, I think Roman Wilson's going to be hot on his heels for that. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That way you are notified anytime we go live. Tomorrow night, it'll be the Scobro Show. And then Wednesday, again, will be Shannon White and the homies. You don't want to miss it. It's on the Pump Your Brakes, right? I'm sorry.
Pump Your Brakes, yeah.
With the homies.
Well, they are the homies,
That's
but
true.
they're on with me at the Pump Your Brakes.
You don't want to miss it, guys. Until then, we'll see you next time. Shannon, take us out, my man.